Hello everybody. So somebody asked me to do a video looking at the self-inquiry of different approaches to self-inquiry. So self-inquiry is the thing that makes Advaita Vedanta different from traditional religion, where you have to believe you have to have faith, believe in something, have devotion to something external to you, to God. And Advaita Vedanta is we have this self-inquiry where we discover the divinity within, basically. And so it's not about faith, it's about some exploring it yourself. Now, there's two. You could also discover the divinity within with a mystical experience, but these things are not repeatable. So you could, well, maybe, I don't know, you take some psychedelics and then you repeat it by taking more psychedelics, but it's not really objective. And although all of our search is really subjective, it's still, this self-inquiry is something that we can all do. I can tell you how to do it, and we can go through ourselves and see what works and see what doesn't work and explore it. So it's almost scientific. So we're going to look at, the person asked me to compare Nisargadatta Maharaj, Ramana Maharshi, and the Buddha's 4 pillars of mindfulness. Now, I don't feel quite so confident talking about Buddhism, so I think I'll leave that off the table for the moment. Maybe we can do another video later. But I'm going to include the direct path of Atmananda Krishna Menon and also the traditional Advaita Vedanta, which I'll put at the end. And we can actually go through an experiment, not really an experiment, but something I really like for finding out what you are. Okay, so there's lots and lots of this analysis in Advaita Vedanta. It's all, they've got the Seer and the Seen, the changing and the unchanging, and then the conscious and unconscious, all of these different ways to analyze what's here. Basically, showing that you are not the body, you're not the mind, neti. You're not this, and you're not this, you're not this, and you're not this. And what you're left with is nothing. Well, clearly there's something because you're looking at it. So you're left with that, pure consciousness. Now, this is very systematic, and I like it, but in fact, the approach of Ramana Maharshi was that all of that is not necessary, because the idea is that the first thought that comes is what he calls the I thought. Now, if you look at Michael James is a scholar who's an expert on Ramana Maharshi, and he reads the original Tamil, and he can, if you watch him talking, he can say how each book was written and which bits were added and which bits would come from talks and were later sort of gone over by Ramana Maharshi to correct, and then bits that he left out. And so he knows all the details. And he said that the I thought is what is known in Advaita Vedanta as reflected consciousness. So that's an important thing to start with. So when we feel aware, this is not actually our awareness. This is us looking at a feeling of being aware. Now, this is different in Kashmiri Shaivism because in that system, although it's also non-dual, they see awareness as being self-reflective. So it's not necessary to have something in the mind that reflects the consciousness so that you're aware of being aware. And this is the approach taken by Jean Klein, Francis Lucille, Rupert Spira as well. So I've heard Rupert Spira and Jean Klein both deny that this reflected consciousness actually exists. The thing against that idea is that what is real must always be present. And in waking, dream sleep, and deep sleep, what is present is your awareness. Now, you in deep sleep, you're still aware. You're aware of nothing, but you also don't feel like you're aware. So that shows that if it's not present, then that is a reflection of awareness, because what is real must always be present. So that's the argument against this idea of reflected consciousness, because during deep sleep, that we don't feel we're aware. And so therefore that is not a part of what you really are. That is part of the mind, which is not present during deep sleep. And so now, getting back to it, so what Ramana Maharshi said is that this reflected awareness is what you need to look at, because this comes first, and then after that, everything else comes. So it's like the stem of a tree. So you have the trunk of a tree, the stem of a plant. You have this trunk of the tree, and you've got all the branches, and those are all the thoughts and the memories and all of that. And what Ramana Maharshi said is, he did teach that you can do the progressive path, you can do devotion, but he said the ultimate teaching is when a thought arises, you say, what does it appear to? And that appears to me. And that feeling of me, you need to stay with that. So the feeling of I. So you stay with that feeling of I, and that is the reflected consciousness. That then, with enough attention, that dissolves. And what's left is pure consciousness. Now, if we look at Nisargadatta Maharaj, he had a different approach. His was slightly more devotional, because he had a guru who told him that he doesn't know what he really is, and he needs to find out what he is. To rest, stay in the I am. And this I am, what happens is you stay with it, and then that dissolves, and you are left with the absolute. So it's a similar thing. So this I am is not the ultimate reality. This feeling of being here is not the ultimate reality. This is the step. Now you cut down the tree at its trunk, and all of the whole tree's gone. So that's the idea. Instead of breaking it down as traditional Advaita does from Shankara, this systematic process of saying that, well, I'm not the body, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, and which is a similar approach in the four pillars of mindfulness of the Buddha, is you say, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. Instead of doing all of that, you just stay with the I. You stay with that, and when that goes, you don't need to work on all the other stuff, because the I arises first, and everything else is based on that. So that's the approach. Now, even though Rupert Spira has this approach that comes from Kashmir Shaivism, basically his teaching's the same. His teaching is abide in the I am, abide in being. I think that's his most modern approach. He used to say, be aware of being aware, and I think he's dropped that now, and now he's saying more like abide in the I. And this is basically the same teaching as Nisargadatta Maharaj, to just rest in that feeling of being here. And I really like it. That's what I find the approach of of Ramana Maharshi to be, I don't know, there's something that I just don't really quite connect to quite in the same way as I do with Nisargadatta. He was told by his guru, just stay that, and after a few years he had enlightenment, and so I really like that idea. I like Rupert Spira's approach too. Now we've got the direct path. Actually, Ramana Maharshi's path is also called the direct path, but this is a different direct path. We've got the direct path as taught by Goode, coming from, and also Rupert Spira and Francis Lucille, coming from, and Jean Klein, I'm going to get around to eventually, coming from Atmananda Krishna Menon. And this is slightly different. So if you look at Greg Goode's experiments, what we're doing is we're looking at something and we're seeing that there's no subject separate from it, and there's no object separate from it. There's only that. And that we see after analysis is just awareness. So instead of focusing on the subject, as we do with Ramana Maharshi, we focus on the subject, and slowly we realize that that subject is just a conceptual subject. It's just an object, a feeling of being the subject. When that goes, we have the ultimate subject, which can never be objectified. I noticed this myself while I was doing lots of this self-inquiry. I'd sit in meditation and basically be with the feeling of being here, and I sat and I saw that it wasn't me. I saw that this was, when I would focus in meditation on the feeling of being me, that wasn't me. It was an object. I was focusing on it. So and it wasn't like that dropped away. I just knew that was just another part of the mind that reflected this awareness back to me. So where am I, really? Now we get to the classical Advaita Vedanta. So they have all this neti, you're not this, which was also explored by Nisargadatta Maharaj and Ramana Maharshi as well. But their main teaching was, yes, to just abide in this, the I thought, stay with the I thought, attend to the I thought, and it will disappear like a uninvited guest at a wedding. Or you stay in the feeling of I am, and that will also open, just go. And, I could see that, but I didn't actually get some sort of enlightenment experience when I realized that I wasn't that either. Now, so we go down to Advaita Vedanta, and so they have different approaches. They have this approach which is the permanent and impermanent. So you feel you're the same person when you're a little kid and when you are now. There's a continuity there, but everything else is changing. So everything that changes can't be you. The only thing that can be you is the unchanging. So that's one approach. Then another approach is the chit jada, which is consciousness and the insentient. So the sentient and the insentient. So you look at a rock, and the rock is clearly not sentient. It depends on me, on my consciousness to be here. And then you look at the thoughts and you see that they are insentient. And this is similar to what we're going to look at now, which is Drig-Drishya Viveka, which is the analysis of the Seer and the Seen, which is my favorite, actually. To be honest, this was the best for me. This was the one that I could go back to, and it really, really made me realize, what I am. So what we do, so you start off, so basically it's about the subject and the object. It's the seer and the seen. So you look at your hand, you say, am I looking at my hand, or is my hand looking at me? Well, I am definitely looking at my hand. I'm the subject, and my hand is the object. Right, then you've got your eyes, so you're looking from your eyes were the subject. You blink your eyes, you move your eyes, I can see, yes, so the eyes are the object, and me, my thoughts, are the subject. But then you look at your thoughts, and you think a thought. So if you can think a thought, it's always hard to think a thought when you're trying to think of a thought, but maybe try 1, 2, 3, or 2 + 2 = 4, A, B, C, D. So you think of that, 1, 2, 3. Now, are you thinking, is 1, 2, 3 thinking about you, or are you thinking of it? Well, clearly it is the object and you're the subject. Now, I hope this is all clear. I'm an English teacher, so I always work with this subject and object idea all the time, every day. And it occurred to me the other day that we also use the word subject as the thing we're going to talk about. This is the subject of today's video, but really that's not the subject, that's the object, okay? Because you are the subject and that's the object. Anyway, I hope people do understand, despite our lack of knowledge of English grammar in the English-speaking world. Anyway, so so your thoughts are the object, and you are the subject. So that then you look, okay, so what is that feeling? This feeling of being me, where these thoughts arise. And you look at that, and you suddenly realize, yes, I'm looking at that too. It's the same point that we got to in the analysis of the approach, the Atma Vichara, the self-inquiry of Nisargadatta and of Ramana Maharshi. So you say, well, actually, no, I am the subject to that feeling of being here. Me being here is, this appears in me. So where are you? Now, the thing is that this is the point where the Upanishads go silent. I can't remember which Upanishad it was, but that there's nothing to be said about that. As we saw with the Mandukya verse 7, we can't speak about it. It's the thing which cannot be found, which clearly is the real you, because it's what is looking at everything. It's where everything arises in. It's the true you, not the you that you think you are. And this brings us, ties together all of these paths. I do like the analytical approach. I find it's more useful. I did this self-inquiry, just abiding, a lot, and I find the other approaches, maybe it's good to combine. Anyway, so there you go. That's that. Tell me what you find useful. If you find one of these approaches better than the other, I'm sure a lot of the people who are commenting are familiar with these types of things. So thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.